Hello, I'm Gary Numan, and I'll be programming Rage this evening, so I hope you like it. The next up is Depeche Mode and a song called In Your Room. Round about, well, in the early 90s, my career was in a terrible state. My writing was really bad. I didn't like my songs much. I had massive money problems, and career was pretty much dead and buried, to be honest. And I sort of gave up really. I just went back to doing it for a hobby. And round about this time, I started to see Gemma, who's now my wife. He bought this Depeche Mode album, Songs of Faith and Devotion, along for me to listen to. And it made a huge impact. It changed everything for me, really. I started to write songs very differently. The passion that I used to have for music when I was a teenager, early 20s, it kind of reminded me of all that, and it all came back, and writing songs for the love of it again, rather than just trying to salvage a career that was failing. So many things about it, and from that moment on, I did an album after that called Sacrifice, which was much better than anything I'd done in the previous 10 years. And since then, the albums that I've made have been heavier and darker and more interesting, really, than what I was doing before. But it all goes back to this Depeche Mode album and Songs of Faith and Devotion. And I've met them a number of times and I've talked about it. And I do think, for me anyway, it's a milestone record in music history. I think it's an absolutely genius piece of music, and them at their finest as well, as far as I'm concerned. And many songs on it are absolutely brilliant. I could have chosen several, but In Your Room, for me, is the one. Next up is called Spitfire by Prodigy. Could have chosen any number of Prodigy songs, actually. Again, a big fan of Prodigy. The guitar player they're using at the moment, Rob Holliday, has actually produced an album of mine with, he's in a band called Sulphur, and they produced an album of mine. He's been guitar player for me in the past, bass player, and he plays with Marilyn Manson as well, doing both things. So because of that connection, although I've been a fan of Prodigy for some time, but recently we've been to see them a lot and checked out a lot of the new stuff that they're doing. And I really do think that live, they're just one of the best bands you can ever see live. And again, recently was in the audience in London watching them doing something with Aid Fenton, who produces my stuff now. And this song started, and the depth of it and the clarity, we just looked at each other and said, how can you do that? It was just brilliant, it's such power. Anyway, as I say, you could pick any number one of Prodigy songs. They're all great, but Spitfire, particular favourite of mine. Okay. Hello, I'm Gary Numan, and you're on Rage. Okay, next up is a band called T-Rex and Get It On. When I was younger, T-Rex was the band that I was most into as a teenager, and they were the one that made me decide really, I'd always wanted to be in music or something, but they were the one that really gave me that sort of massive drive and desire to go out and get a band together. And I did love the music. I really did a lot, and I still really do like it, although it's quite old now. But it was the persona of Mark Bolan as a frontman, and the lifestyle, and just the way he seemed to be, and loving every second of it. That made it as desirable as being on stage and singing songs. Just everything about it. It was a complete package of being in a band, singing songs, writing stuff, and all of the trappings that came with it, just made it seem very, very desirable. So they were the biggest thing, I think, throughout my teenage years. Loved it. Get It On. Okay, next video up is Marilyn Manson and Beautiful People. I'm a huge Marilyn Manson fan and have been for a long, long time. I first heard about him years ago. He did a song of mine called Down in the Park that Trent Reznor produced, I think. So I was kind of told about him then and checked him out. And I was sort of into it, but then as each album came out, to me it just got better and better and more polished and slick. And live, probably, with one or two other people, would be the best live act I've ever seen. Just fantastic shows and brilliant performance, and the sound is always great. And I think Beautiful People, the video for that, just took the whole level of videos just above everybody. I think it's an amazing video. All these videos have been absolutely brilliant. Next up is 9 Inch Nails and The Wretched. I've seen them live many times, and The Wretched is one of those songs that it does literally send shivers up my spine. It's, you know, it does its beginning, and then in that piano comes, and it's a perfect moment. It's just the dynamic of it is just absolutely spot on. For me, anyway, it's as perfect a song for my taste as could ever be written. Anyway, I've said enough about 9 Inch Nails. This is The Wretched. The next one up is 9 Inch Nails and Head Like a Hole. I got a friend of mine who's also a massive 9 Inch Nails fan, and we argue about whether this is the best chorus ever written or not. I think it is. And he thinks there's another Nin song that's the best one. But for me, it's one of those songs that keeps on giving, as people say. It comes in, it's cool, and then there's what you think is a chorus happens, and you just go, oh, that's just brilliant. And then another comes, and it's just even better. And it's one of those songs that, for the rest of your life, you just wish to Christ you'd written something like that. Just brilliant. Anyway, Head Like a Hole.
Bow down before the one you serve. You're going to get what you deserve. Bow down before...
Next video is 9 Inch Nails and Closer. 9 Inch Nails, for me, it's one of those bands that whenever an album comes out, you kind of wait for it because you know the standard is going to, it just raises the bar each time a new album comes out. And if I had a list of my top 10 favourite songs, 3 or 4 of them at least, 9 Inch Nails would be in there, right up near the top. They've done some of the most brilliant stuff over the years. And the fact that Trent Reznor, has covered one of my songs is such an honour. It's probably the thing I'm particularly proud about for as long as I've been around. And just the use of sounds, the way he structures things, it's just genius, record after record after record. Particularly keen on the sort of downward spiral period and so on. But everyone has their favourites. But to have someone like Trent Reznor talk about, I've heard him do an interview. We talked about me as having an influence on what he did in the early days, and it makes you so proud for somebody that cool to say something like that. So I'm a huge fan. Massive fan. So this is, again, actually the video, like Beautiful People, is on a completely different level to most of the other things I've ever seen. So this is 9 Inch Nails and Closer. Next up is a song called Sonne by Rammstein from Germany. I think, in my humble, I'm not a massive guitar player, but to me it's probably the best guitar riff ever. Best guitar riff I've ever heard, ever. It's led me to write a couple of things over the last 2 or 3 years or so to try to get back to writing guitar riffs. So it got an influence on me actually as a song. I went to see them live again in London a while back, and up there with Marilyn Manson, probably one of the, if not the best actually, best live show that I've ever seen. At one point, I don't know if they brought the show here, but they had an inflatable dinghy come up on stage, and one of them jumps in it, and then they crowd surfed around the whole 4,000 people in this dinghy, and then back on stage, people with face masks on with flames coming out. Just amazing. I just did the most brilliant live show I've ever seen, and the fact that it's all very, very German. Oh God, that sounds really insulting. I don't mean this in a bad way, but normally if people singing in like really, really heavy German wouldn't sort of go down too well, really, with the English. But nobody seems to mind. It's kind of tongue-in-cheek, and the fact that you don't know what he's talking about at all doesn't seem to matter because the music is there and the whole performance is there. It's just great. But somehow they got this fantastic balance between it being tongue-in-cheek and almost laughing at it, and yet just being brilliantly heavy and hard-hitting at the same time. It just works brilliantly anyway. So this is Rammstein and Sonne. Okay, next video is Linkin Park, and in the end, I went to Kerrang Awards in England a few years ago when Linkin Park got an award, and people there seemed to be sort of anti them for some reason, like they didn't belong. Never understood that, don't understand all the thinking about the rock thing, but I just thought it was brilliant. I think they were a brilliant little band, and in the end, just one of the best videos I've ever seen, and I just think it's a fantastic song and a fantastic video, and I've seen them live a few times and they're just great on stage. So I just didn't get this resistance to them that some of the people had at the Kerrang place, but whatever, I love it. Okay, the next video up is Grand Theft Audio, a song called Stupid Ass. I'm quite closely connected with the band. Actually, they're not around anymore, they split up, but I was quite closely connected with the band. Their guitar player is my guitar player now, somebody I've known for years, and was also in a band called Three Colours Red that might have done something over here. They toured with us in America a few years ago, and it was mental, absolutely mental. They're just brilliant fun, really good people to hang about with, but dangerously mental. Anyway, the video's really cool actually, so she's Stupid Ass.
Listen up out there. Pirate Radio back on the air with another illegal transmission. This is Grand Theft Audio, Stupid Ass.
The next video up is one of mine. This is called Cars. It's something that I wrote a long time ago, a really long time ago, but it's been re-released many times, and I guess it's the song that, if anyone knows about me at all, it's the one that people remember. I actually wrote it, I was attacked in London, actually, when I was in a car, and I did something, obviously, I don't know what I did, but these blokes got out of a van in front of me and started kicking the car and trying to get me out, and freaked me out a bit, so I ended up driving up on a pavement, scattering pedestrians and things to get away, because if I'd have got out, I was going to get hammered. So when I got home, I started to think about all that, and just being in a car in the city is kind of, you're safe, and that's where it all came from. This thing about hearing my car for safest of all and all that sort of thing. It came about because I ran away from being beaten up in London one time. So yeah, where are they now?